Paid Mila Falcha, 100,000 welcomes. We are the Rotary Club of York, the 26th largest club in the world. We're a people of action committed to service above self and honoring the four-way test. If you haven't already done so, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. President-elect nominee Aaron Jacobs will lead us in our opening song, America, My Country 'Tis of Thee, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Past President Gordon Fryrick will offer the invocation, and John Luciani will introduce our visitors.
Thank you, President Jackie. Rotarians, please join me. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon. As the war in Ukraine rages into its fourth week, there is an historic York Rotary link to Ukraine. In the summer of 1990, a group of summer Rotary exchange students from this club and district were among the first such group to go to the Ukraine. My daughter, then an 18-year-old, was one of those students as they met with and lived with students from Lvov, now called Lviv. After 3 weeks in Ukraine, they returned to the United States along with the Ukrainian young people they met there, who then spent 3 weeks here in New York. We were privileged to have hosted one of the Ukrainian chaperones from that trip, and we learned how repressive the Soviet system had been and why freedom was so important to them. Our students and their students had their eyes opened by this first of its kind international experience. So for us, this is personal. I hope you will join with me in making a contribution to the Rotary's Ukraine Fund to provide humanitarian aid for the almost 3 million refugees. As we open today's meeting, I offer this brief prayer. May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world. Then nation will not threaten nation, and humanity will not again know war. Compassionate God, let love and justice flow like a mighty stream. Let peace fill the earth as the waters fill the sea. Amen.
Good afternoon. I am pleased to have the honor of introducing our guests for today's meeting. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing until President Jackie has welcomed you. Guests today are MJ McCloskey from the Uptown Club, Robert Brick, guest of Youth Leadership, Sarah Brick, Youth Leadership, Kevin Brick, Youth Leadership, and Jeffrey Hom. Robert High, guest of Youth Leadership. Brandon Long, a guest of Chris Topf. Danielle Miller, a guest of Chris Topf. We have a new member, Bruce Newell. Also, Brittany Reese, a guest of Phil Woods. Julia Ryer, a guest of Youth Leadership. Christine Ryer, a guest of Youth Leadership. Cheryl Yerger, guest of the Membership Committee. And finally, Lindsay Barna, a guest of the Communication Committee Danielle Lorenzo, guest of the Communication Committee. Melanie Chrisamore, a guest of the Communication Committee. And finally, Cora Taylor, a guest of Annie Rowitz.
Welcome to all of our visitors. We're so glad that you're here today. Congratulations to our students of the month. We hope that you will plan to join us often and that many of you will think about joining us as members. Rotarians, please help me welcome our visitors. You may be seated. Thank you. Thank you, Gordon, for making that announcement. I appreciate that. Just a reminder, we are collecting funds on behalf of the refugees of the Ukraine. And the CEF fund has agreed, the board has agreed to make a $5,000 match. As I announced last week, we have an anonymous donor who agreed to make a $5,000 commitment to this effort. And we're asking that our club reach that $5,000 goal so that we can make a total gift of $15,000 for this effort. The Educational Vocational Guidance Committee meets today at 1:30 in the Mixed Grill. The Youth Exchange Committee meets on March 17th at 12 noon via Zoom. The IDEA Committee meets on March 21st at 8 a.m. via Zoom. The Fellowship Committee is hosting a networking event on Friday, March 18th from 12 to 1 at the York County Literacy Council. Lunch will be provided. Contact past President Rob Bowen if you'd like to sign up. There's also a Rotary Club networking opportunity coming up at Hollywood Casino in York on Friday, April 8th from 12 to 1. And if you're interested, please contact past President Rob Bowen. There's a fellowship opportunity coming up on April 2nd from 3 to 9 p.m. at Tidings of Peace Christian School. It's part of their family fun night and open house. Again, if you're interested, please contact past President Rob Bowen. I want to thank everyone who brought guests today as part of our membership campaign, March to 300. We're getting very close. Please continue to invite guests and potential members to join us. And now our featured member moment, Dee Baker. Dee is short for Deirdre, a Gaelic name that means sorrow. While Dee's family isn't Irish, her name has proven to be a good fit, given she eventually came to work for hospice and community care, the organization that provided end-of-life care for her mother and is currently caring for her 98-year-old father. Dee describes herself as an introvert who taught herself to be an extrovert in her job. She's comfortable talking about death as she says it's a natural part of life. In this time with her dad, there have been many special conversations that have brought them closer. And while hospice means the end of life for a loved one, it also means a beginning to better understand their wishes in preparation for death, a comfort to them and to their family. Dee was born and raised in Dover on a 20-acre farm with horses, cats, a dog, and a pond where she enjoyed swimming and ice skating. She earned her degree in psychology from York College and a master's in clinical psychology from Millersville University with a plan to practice child psychology. In a course assignment, she was tasked with meeting with the executive director of then Access York. Dee was so impressed with the leader's strength and her voice for battered women that it inspired her to shift her focus. And after interning at a local shelter, she found herself in the role of executive director of Lebanon Battered Women's Program. During the O.J. Simpson trial, programs like the one in Lebanon were thrust into the spotlight, where a much needed shelter was completely paid for through a capital campaign, and so a development officer was born. She reached out to the major league sports teams in our state and developed a strong partnership with the Phillies and the Pirates, where No More, the public service announcement campaign against battered women, was born. She didn't just say she wanted to make a difference, she actually did. Dee has been a member of the Rotary Club of York for 3 years and was a member in the East York and Frederick, Maryland clubs before. She serves on the Educational Vocational Guidance Committee and the Fundraising Committee. She likes Rotary because it is a conduit for good, and she believes there's opportunity for every member to find their passion. Dee, thank you for using your gifts to advance the work of Rotary and for the impact you continue to make. And now Tony Schweitzer has an announcement on literacy and the Lend a Hand B3 campaign.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'm here on behalf of the Literacy Committee, as well as the Helping Hands Committee and Tina. So just wanted to share a quick endorsement of our annual campaign with a twist to it, to try to really put help in the hands of kids, little kids, even kids who can't read yet, but in a life-changing way. So I want to share a statistic or a couple statistics with you real quick. Middle-income neighborhoods, the ratio of books to children is 13 books for every child. In a low-income neighborhood, that ratio is 300 children to one book. 61% of low-income families have no books at all. So being the Rotary Club, being people who want to make a difference in the community right around us, this is a very wonderful, simple, and quick opportunity for you to help make a difference in the lives of people who are very little yet, but having a love of reading as well as the tools to help them read is a path for success for all of us and for all of them. So here is our challenge. We have partnered, we, the Literacy Committee, have partnered with the Lend a Hand group to provide not only books or donations that can be used toward books, but as well as blankets, because it is a wonderful way for parents to help support the reading activities of their children and really help them to embrace the desire to do so, even when they don't want to sit under the blanket with their parents. So this year, we have selected as a committee or as committees 4 beneficiaries: the Little Bulldogs Academy, which has 39 students, the York Day Nursery at the York County School of Technology, which has 40 students, Christ Church Child Care Center, which also has 40 students, and the United Way Reach Out and Read program, which tries to get books out into doctors' offices throughout the community where there are a lot of lower income individuals who come in for care. So each of those books, we are hoping to be able to partner with blankets, and we are looking for help with the making of blankets as well.
We are. As you can see, I have one of the blanket kits with me. Some of you in the past, previous years, have helped us make these blankets. It's a really fun activity. We're going to be sharing with you some dates in the future of when we can get together and make these blankets together for the children, as well as if you wanted to take a blanket home with you and make one with your family for the children. We'll bring those in as well for you to have that opportunity. We need a total of 119 of these, so we need all the help we can get. That's about triple the amount that we've done in the past as part of Lend a Hand Committee. So we are relying on your hands to help us, and also your donations. Right now, we're able to purchase the blankets at the blanket kits at just $5 each. So a few dollars can go a long way, and we really appreciate your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony and Tina, and for the important work you're doing in this effort. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mark Wheeler, who has some Students of the Month.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Thank you, President Jackie. Honored today to recognize 2 very fine young students from Central York for Students of the Month. Both are juniors. Show of hands for the Panther alumni in the crowd today. Get those hands up so our students can see. Yeah, we've got some Panthers out there. There they are. Very nice. Very nice. The first student who's going to speak is Ms. Julia Ryer. Julia is the parent. Her parents are Christine and Dave Ryer. I'm more nervous than they are. School activities, color guard leader, unified track and field, unified bocce, youth activation committee, and National Honor Society. Hobbies include volunteering at the St. Joseph's Church Vacation Bible School and the Catholic Harvest Food Pantry. Some distinctions for Julia: Distinguished Honor Roll, Youth Activation Committee Summit attendee, and varsity letter for Unified Sports. And her career plans are to attend a four-year university to major in elementary education or special education. Fellow Rotarians, please welcome Julia Ryer.
Good afternoon. I want to begin by thanking you all for giving me this opportunity to speak to you all today. Throughout my high school career, I've had the amazing opportunity to discover my passions through my extracurricular activities. Whether it be in the classroom, on a sports team, or in a club, I've seen the impact of how mentoring those who face disabilities can have. Many of those who face disabilities experience feelings of being alone or left out during their everyday lives, and most don't realize the struggles that these students face. I believe that inclusion is something that should be spread throughout our schools and communities. With my involvement in Unified Sports and the Youth Activation Committee, I've had the opportunity to contribute to the spread of inclusivity throughout my school. Many of you might not know what Unified Sports are, so let me explain. Unified Sports are fully inclusive, co-ed, PIAA varsity sports that brings together athletes with and without disabilities. Unified athletes train together and compete as equal teammates throughout the Unified Sports seasons. Currently, I participate in both Unified Track and Field as well as Unified Bocce. The thing that I love about participating in Unified Sports is that everyone is able to participate no matter what their abilities are. For Unified Track and Field, there are a wide variety of different events that everyone is able to participate in. And during meets, the athletes are placed in heats with other athletes who have similar qualifying times or distances. This gives all participants an equal opportunity no matter what their abilities are, and it gives me the confidence that I can do well for my team. Unified Sports also truly embodies sportsmanship. A few weeks ago, our Unified Bocce season concluded, and our team placed 4th out of 6 teams at the championship. I mention this because even though we didn't place in the top 3, all of the other teams and athletes were congratulating us. Whether you're in first, second, last, or any place in between, all of the other athletes on the teams are cheering you on. Unified Sports has helped me realize the true importance of inclusion and how great of an impact it can have by just being nice to someone who faces a disability. I've made incredible and long-lasting friendships with all of the other athletes. My involvement in Unified Sports has also given me the opportunity to realize my passion for working with children who have disabilities in the future, as I plan on majoring in special education in college. I'd like to conclude with a quote by Loretta Claiborne, who's a world-class runner, gifted motivational speaker, and a Special Olympics athlete who deals with an intellectual disability. I do not need my name on buildings. I do not need my name anywhere, but I hope that people think back on my life and see that everyone deserves to have the right to work, to live, to play. Thank you.
Fellow Rotarians, the second student of the month from Central York here with us today is Mr. Robbie Brick. His parents are Kevin and Sarah Brick. Activities at school: Boys Varsity Club, Student Council member, National Honor Society member, Mu Alpha Theta, which is Math Honor Society member, Science Honor Society member, and Latin Honor Society member. He's team captain at FC Ballyhoo Soccer Club. That's been a few years now. And he also is a volunteer at the Catholic Harvest Food Pantry with Julia. Some additional awards that he has been honored with: he has won the Integrity Award and the Stellar Student Award, both at Central. His plans are after high school are to attend a four-year college to pursue a degree in business or finance. Robbie has also accepted Rotary's invitation to participate in the Rotary Youth Leadership Conference in June. Rotarians, please welcome Robbie Brick.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Brick, and I'm a junior at Central York High School. I'm honored to be here today and to be given the opportunity to let you know a little bit about myself. Today, I'm a person of many influences: my parents, family, friends, faith, education, and sports. Together, it comprises who I am: an outgoing, confident, team-oriented, community-focused, and people-centered young man. But one experience in particular has shaped me into the man I've become. In the summer of 2016, my family and I moved from our home in Westchester, Pennsylvania, to our current home in York. I was 12 years old at the time and not excited about leaving everything I had ever known. In the beginning, I did not enjoy my new school. I was angry that we had moved, and this consumed most of my thoughts. And while it was never hard for me to make friends in the past, I found it difficult to start anew in an area completely unknown to me. I still remember how scared I was the first day of school when I walked in and was introduced as the new kid. Thankfully, the minute I accepted my environment, everything got better. I began to have more fun at school, and I learned that I could still keep in contact with some of my old friends through playing Xbox. I even ran for 6th grade mayor and almost won. As I step back to consider these times, I have learned that moving was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. I truly believe that I would not be the person I am today without moving to York. Moving has helped me get out of my comfort zone. It has made me comfortable in myself and given me a sense of confidence that I had lacked before. The move has shaped me into an outgoing person who welcomes the chance to meet and talk to new people. It has made me a strong-minded individual who is confident in himself. I have met some of my best friends thanks to this experience. So I'm proud and thankful for moving to York. I am grateful for the experience and the lessons it has taught me that we should welcome change with open arms. I'm particularly excited about the prospect of college, learning new things, meeting new people, and readying myself for the future. So today, I stand tall, happy about life in York.
Robbie, I had to change schools in 6th grade too, and I remember being terrified. And I met some of my very best friends that remain closest friends to this day. So you're right; they're going to stay with you forever. The change can often be very, very good. And Julia, I love the career track that you're on, and let me tell you, come see me when you graduate because I might have an opportunity for you. I love what you're planning to do. You're both an inspiration. We're so happy for what you're achieving and will continue to achieve. Congratulations. And now it is my greatest privilege to welcome past President Mike Summers to introduce our program.
President Jackie's just buttering me up. It is St. Patrick's Day coming up. She's very Irish, so she has something in mind, I assume. I really think we should not allow our featured speakers to follow the students of the month. I just don't think that's fair to them because our students are outstanding and very, very proud of both of you for what you have done already and what you plan to do. And I have one of the great privileges of introducing our speaker, who happens to be a great friend of mine from the past. Our speaker is Glenn Tallia, the Chief Legal Counsel for Weather, Space Services and Research for the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. That's a mouthful. And so therefore they call themselves NOAA, which is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. Glenn is a senior career official, having served 6 administrations, starting with the first President Bush, HW administration, and now through the administration of President Biden's. Glenn is a national expert on domestic and international space law and advisor to the White House and the National Space Council on such matters. Glenn manages a staff of attorneys and related professional staff, providing legal counsel to a host of departments within NOAA and Department of Commerce. Glenn has served several regulatory reform efforts, most recently to promote the U.S. space industry and make the U.S. flag of choice for the commercial space ventures. Glenn presently is working to establish legal programs to provide orbital debris information and services to U.S. space operators. Glenn will provide a brief overview of NOAA, from daily weather forecasts, severe storm warnings, and climate monitoring to fishery management, coastal restoration, and supporting marine life and industries, and now space commerce. NOAA's products and service support economic vitality and affect more than 1/3 of the American gross domestic product. Our speaker is a regular lecturer at law schools on space law and will explain the important role of NOAA's plays in supporting the growing U.S. space industry and developing a regulation of international space commerce. Glenn earned a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Richmond and a Juris Doctorate from Catholic University in DC. I should mention that Glenn and his wife Suzanne and I all went to the University of Richmond together and have been close friends for over 40 years. And we will keep our old stories to ourselves. Fellow Rotarians and guests, please warmly welcome our virtual presenter, Glenn Tallia, the Chief Legal Counsel for Noaa. Glenn?
Hello, everybody. And Mike, can you all hear me? Just to make sure. Assuming everybody can hear me out there. Hello?
We can hear you okay. Oh, come on, Glenn, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, he did.
Hey, there you go, Glenn.
Oh, perfect. Great. Thanks.
We
Thank
can
you.
hear you.
Wonderful. Mike, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's much appreciated. It's an honor for me to be here today to talk about Noaa and my role in Noaa. And as Mike explained, we've been good friends for many years. Mike, Jackie, and I, my wife Suzanne. And like Mike mentioned, we first met each other in college. We pledged the same fraternity. We were fraternity brothers for years, still fraternity brothers, and we remained friends during all that time. But I think that's it regarding our friendship. I think it's important for me to let Mike know in this public forum and for the official record that President Jackie is my favorite Rotarian. She is not even close, not even close. So, but seriously, I want to state up front how important I believe organizations are like the Rotary Club, basically for the things you do to support civil society. And, you know, it's really important, I think, to recognize the contributions you make through public service and your other efforts. So my hats are off to you all, basically to help keep America's society, civil society strong. As for myself, I feel fortunate to be able to work for an organization that's public service oriented also, and that's Noaa. You know, our motto is science, service, and stewardship. And during my career at Noaa, I've been honored to work with an incredibly dedicated group of professionals who really take that motto to heart every day. And I came over from the private sector, big law firms in DC, and it was kind of eye-opening to me that people here clearly were not here for the paycheck, but they were really here because they believed in the mission and how important it was for the American public. So you know, Noaa is a really interesting organization. It's not that large, but it really, I think, punches above its weight. So I'm going to talk about two things today. First, a brief overview of Noaa and my role in the organization. And then I want to talk a bit about the unique role I play as an authorizer and facilitator of commercial space activities. So briefly on Noaa, Mike's mentioned it's an agency of the Department of Commerce. It's actually the largest agency of the Department of Commerce. It's about 12,000 employees. Oh, hold 1 second here. It's about 12,000 employees. We have a budget of about $6.9 billion. It was established by President Nixon in 1970 through a reorganization of the government. Basically, the same time EPA was established. EPA was established, and so was Noaa. But many parts of our agency go way back before 1970. The oldest part is the Coast Survey. The Coast Survey was actually founded by Thomas Jefferson in 1807 to do what its title is, basically is to survey the coastline of the United States. And that was very important for a new country to figure out, basically, you know, map the coastline so we would have nautical charts for maritime commerce and for other transportation. So the Coast Survey actually is still in existence. It's actually located in the National Ocean Service. The Weather Bureau also dates back to the Civil War era, and now is known as the National Weather Service. Its first statute authorizing it was passed by Congress in the 1890s. Its mission then is the same as it is now, to forecast the weather and to issue watches and warnings for severe weather, to protect life and property and promote the national economy. So when Noaa was founded, if you read the presidential signing statement from President Nixon, basically he was recognizing that not enough attention was being paid to our oceans and atmosphere, which we all know make life on Earth possible, right? So basically the mission is focused. NOAA has a lot of missions, but the main mission is focused on better understanding these very important Earth systems, really upon which our very existence is dependent. And I don't think that's hyperbole to say that. In fact, as we get a greater understanding of the oceans and the atmosphere and how they interact, we begin to understand that, frankly, life without either one of them, we wouldn't be able to human beings would not be able to exist on the planet. And now NOAA is an operational agency. It's not an agency that creates a lot of paper. We actually generate products and services that are used by the public every day. And our agencies do that. There's 5 separate agencies in NOAA, sub-agencies. We have the National Marine Fisheries Service, which maintains our fisheries, goals to make them sustainable for use now, but also for future generations. The National Ocean Service, which does a number of things related to the ocean, including surveying the coastline, establishing marine sanctuaries, managing our coastal zones. Those 2 agencies are known as the wet side of NOAA. I don't work with them. I have in the past, but I work with what's known as the wet side agencies. And those are namely three agencies: the National Weather Service, NESDIS, which is a National Environmental Satellite and Data Information Service, and Noaa Research. So I'll briefly describe each one of these drive side agencies. And again, my role is the Chief Counsel, responsible for providing legal services to these 3 entities. National Weather Service, you all probably have heard of that. I think it's probably the most known federal agency. That's 4,000 employees. We have 120 weather forecast offices, which basically operate our Doppler weather radars, our weather balloons, and other observing infrastructure. We issue forecasts, as you know, watches and warnings for severe weather. A very interesting organization, operates 24/7. They also operate the National Center for Environmental Prediction, which basically are very, very important organization. I won't go into all the details because time is limited, but the ones you probably know most is National Hurricane Center. Very important organization, issues hurricane tracks, warnings, watches, etc. These centers basically are developed, work modeling the environment depending on their area. So the rivers are modeling rivers to determine what the rivers will do when there'll be flooding, etc. So that's Weather Service. The other organization, which is a not very well-known organization, but a very important organization for the country, is NESDIS, National Environmental Satellite Data Information Service. And NESDIS is one of the largest space operators in the world. It operates several major satellite constellations. One of them is one constellation that you probably know of is GOES, which are the 2 geostationary satellites which hang over the northern hemisphere and provide us weather forecasting and insights into the weather over North America. Very important. We just launched a GOES actually a couple weeks ago from Cape Canaveral, GOES-T. Very important for our weather forecasting function. Other incredibly important satellite system is our polar orbiting satellite system, known as POES. These are satellites that fly over the poles multiple times per day. They're polar orbiting. We operate this in cooperation with Europe. We worked all this out a bunch of years ago to do it in cooperation with Europe to save us money and to build up capacity in Europe. Now the Europeans are very good partners in this undertaking. And this data that we get from these satellites is critically important to our weather forecasting because it is the main input into our weather forecast models operated by NCEP. So we couldn't forecast the weather without the data from these satellites. Other very interesting satellite mission we fly is the Discover mission. So NOAA, we think about that our mission goes from the bottom of the ocean to the top of the atmosphere, but it actually goes into space because NOAA is charged with predicting and forecasting what's known as space weather. This is basically solar activity that has a possibility to greatly impact a modern society. And so we have a satellite, which is our sentinel in the sky. It's between the sun and the earth, and it provides us information on what the sun's doing. And with that information, we go ahead and issue forecasts, watches and warning for solar activity. We generate a lot of data, right, from all this, from all these activities. So NESDIS operates the largest data archive, environmental data archive in the world, National Center for Environmental Information, There's a number of centers, but the main headquarters, in the main center actually, is located in Asheville, North Carolina. So that's NESDIS. The third agency, sub-agency I represent is Noaa Research. And this is the part of the US government that carries out all the oceanic and atmospheric research performed by the US government. It's either funded by the government extramurally or intramurally. Our own scientists do it. Oops, hold on a little. We have 11 NOAA laboratories that I work with very closely that basically carry out cutting edge research in these areas related to the ocean and the atmosphere, and 19 cooperative institutes, which are partnerships we have with universities, and basically where our scientists work very closely with the scientists from these universities. NOAA also leads the US government's global climate change effort, the science effort, and has done so since the 1970s when the first laws were passed regarding climate change. We're on the science end. We're not setting the policy about what we should do about it, but we're providing information to the decision makers who make those decisions on what to do about it. So we generate all this data. This data we generate to perform our mission, but we also understand that it's very valuable for other purposes. So what we do is we have a data policy, which is a full and open data policy where we make all our data available to anybody at no cost. And for years we did this ourselves at significant cost to the taxpayer. But I'm happy to report to you that several years ago, we negotiated an agreement with all the major cloud providers, whereby they provide our data free of charge to the public and free of charge to the government. So they take the data, our NOAA data, and they make it available to anybody who wants it at no cost to the government or to the taxpayer. And so this is a great benefit. NOAA, like I said, NOAA generates this data for its mission, performance mission, but we know there are other smart people out there who will figure other really important things to do with our data, build businesses on it, and employ Americans and pay basically pay taxes to the government, which helps to offset the cost of doing all this. One of the greatest examples of this is the private weather industry. You all have AccuWeather located in Pennsylvania. AccuWeather uses our data as the building block for their business. So I spent a good part of my career early on advocating for this type of data policy, especially over in Europe, because Europe didn't have the same policy. But slowly but surely, after a lot of cajoling and pushing, Europe came around to adopt the same policy as the United States, which is great for the whole scientific community. So, like I said, I'm chief legal counsel for the dry side for these three organizations. I'm also responsible for environmental compliance and safety for the organization, at least the legal side of it. We do a lot of, there are a lot of environmental laws out there that we all need to comply with, including the government. So we take that responsibility very seriously. We're an environmental agency. We want to do the right thing. Also, we conduct a lot of activities that are very risky. We fly our hurricane hunters into hurricanes. That's pretty risky, kind of crazy too, but very important and useful for what we do. So we want to do that in a safe way. And also, our ocean exploration program, our divers dive to parts of the world that nobody else dives in, and most, the deepest parts of the ocean, the places that are very risky. And so we want to do that in a safe manner and basically make sure our employees are safe. So, as far as my specific role as legal counsel, I don't do all the work myself, obviously. I have a bunch of lawyers who are under my supervision and paralegals. And so, basically what we do is, there are many laws, national, international, that apply to what we do. And, we always want to comply with the law. That's the first thing we want to do. We want to make sure that we are complying with the law. We are a nation of laws. That's one of the most incredible things about the United States, right? The rule of law. Don't take it for granted. Not everybody has the rule of law as a guiding principle. And so, we're always trying to find legal ways to accomplish our mission. The question I get oftentimes from politicians when they first come in is, they have some great plan about doing something, and they'll say, okay, give me my legal options, right? Okay, so then my staff goes around figuring out what are the legal options to accomplish this important objective that they want to accomplish. Or sometimes they'll come to me and say, I want to do this. Is it legal? And I'll have to say sometimes, most of the time, it's legal. But sometimes I'll have to say, well, no, it's not legal to do it that way. But here's another way that we can do what you're trying to accomplish. So, so it's basically, we try to get to yes, but in a legal way. So I'm obviously part of the executive branch. And, executive, the root of the word is execute. We execute the laws, right? That's what we're about. We don't make the law, we execute it. And we are answerable to the people who make the laws, our Congress, right? And so a lot of time, I spent a good amount of time interfacing with congressional committee staff and members at that time to explain what we're doing and how it's meeting the mission that we've been given by Congress. I meet with other agencies a lot, representatives from other agencies. We don't do this mission, based by ourselves. For example, our spacecraft, we don't design and build our spacecraft. We don't have that expertise. We operate them, right? We operate them and get the data, but we work with NASA, who takes the leading role in designing and building our spacecraft and launching our spacecraft. And we pay for all this, trust me. we pay NASA to do this, but we couldn't do it without NASA. And also with the White House. I mean, it's interesting, depending on the White House, they're very interested in different things. Last White House was very interested in space. This White House is also. So I spent a good amount of time interfacing with the White House, and now with the National Space Council, which President Trump convened a number of years ago, and President Biden has continued with. That's headed up by Vice President Harris. So I spent a good amount of time advising the National Space Council on space issues that they are interested in. So. And also Office of Science Technology Policy, OSTP, they have an interest, obviously, in what's going on climate change-wise. And NOAA is actually responsible for generating a lot of the most important reports that go to decision makers who have to decide what we do about climate change. So let me check how I'm doing time here. Okay, good, not too bad. So I have my second topic. That was my first topic, NOAA and my role as the Chief Legal Counsel for the dry side. My second topic is the role I play in helping to authorize and facilitate space commerce. And basically, there's two major undertakings here I'm going to talk about. So as you probably all know, you just have to watch the news. The space economy is one of the fastest growing parts of the US economy. Its growth rate is very fast, and a lot of venture capital coming in, a lot of interest in doing all things space. And NOAA, like I said, we're a major operator of satellites, but we're more than that. We're also have the authority, basically we're required, charged by law with authorizing and licensing private companies to do commercial space activities, most specifically remote sensing satellites. And you've probably seen some of the imagery on the TV and in the newspaper too, about the war in Ukraine, and you'll see that the satellite imagery showing that the troop formations, etc. And basically, what's going on in the battlefield. That imagery, most of that imagery is coming from these commercial remote sensing satellite systems that NOAA has licensed. And what we're talking about is remote sensing the Earth from space. And usually it involves basically taking imagery of the Earth, the land features and water features. But it's more than that also. Some of these systems can do incredible things like locate oil on the ground or gold, etc., like this. So they have a lot of commercial value. And Congress passed a law. I won't give you all the gory details in the law, but they passed a law back in the early 1990s just saying that, we should basically authorize private companies to do this. We have our national systems, spy satellite systems, which you probably have heard about, the exquisite systems. And those were built by industry. And there was a recognition that, well, if you want this industrial base to stay in place, we need to make sure there are other opportunities besides the government for these companies building these systems. So they passed this law. They said, private persons, if you want to operate a private remote sensing space system, you need to apply to the Department of Commerce. You can do that. You need to apply to the Department of Commerce, NOAA, for a license. Part of the reason they did this is because under the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, anybody who wants to do something in space that's not a government has to be authorized and continually supervised by their government. So the U.S. government, kind of got ahead of the foreign competition here and said, okay, we're going to put a law in place that will allow the private sector to do this. And so, and my team moved out on basically implementing this law in the late 1990s, in the early 2000s. We wrote regulations several times. Wasn't too much interest in this area, I'd say, until about 2012, 2010. I mean, there were a few companies, Space Imaging One and Digital Globe, who were basically trying to make a go of it. But then, like I said, about 10 years ago, we saw a major interest in industry in doing this. And we also saw a lot of interest in foreign countries to do this also, foreign businesses. So my team, the most recent regulations were in 2006. We said we need to take a step back and really take advantage of this opportunity here. We have a national policy which says that we want this U.S. industry to be the world leader, right? We need to basically reform our regulations to make that a reality, particularly in light of the increasing foreign competition. So we issued new regulations in 2020 with the big support of Secretary Ross, by the way. I met with Secretary many times to talk about how important this was for the U.S. economy. Met with other cabinet members also to make this case. And they said, do it, go for it. And so with that push from up top, we were able to get this done. And the regulations were issued in July of 2020. The purpose of the regulations is to make the United States the flag of choice. So we want not only U.S. persons to be licensed here, we want to attract foreign persons, foreign companies to come and be licensed in the United States. We want to corner the market, so to speak. We want the U.S. to be the world leader. And I'm happy to report that since we put these regulations in place, we've seen many, many more companies enter into the market, including many foreign companies that have decided to become licensed here in the United States. Some of them are pretty big companies. I won't call out any names because I'll probably forget one, and maybe that wouldn't be a good thing. But yeah, so far the regulations are showing great promise in attracting U.S. companies to come here and to be licensed by the United States government to operate the remote sensing system. One of the fastest growing areas in space. We just issued our 200th license. These licenses cover thousands of satellites. Many have launched, many are being built, and many will launch years in the future. So that's the first undertaking I wanted to discuss with you, make you aware of. The other one, and this one is making the news a lot, is space debris. Space debris, it's getting a lot of press these days. It is a huge problem. NOAA has been directed by the National Space Council for putting in place a program to supply commercial space operators with information on the location of space debris and potentially issuing collision avoidance warnings. And my role is to lead the legal effort on that. And space debris is a very large and growing problem. We have many thousands of pieces of space debris in low Earth orbit, which is probably the most valuable orbit. It's about 500 miles up. And it's hard sometimes to get your head around this, but this space debris is moving at 17,500 miles per hour. 17,500 miles per hour, almost all of it about that speed. And all these things have the potential to cause great damage if they collide in with other space objects. Not only destroying those space objects, but creating a lot more space debris. And more space debris breeds more space debris. So it's a very serious problem. It's a very serious risk to all space operators. We have this happening just at a time when we have more and more commercial space activity in space. So it's something that we really need to get on top of. And it's something that what we're trying to do is avoid the situation we have with air traffic control. At one time there was no air traffic control in the United States. And what happened was there were a number of airplanes, not surprisingly, flew into each other. A lot of people were killed. It took that to get the government to do something about it. But we're trying to avoid that situation. We've had a couple of collisions recently, and more are expected. But so we're trying to get ahead of it. It's kind of like trying to set up air traffic control, but for space. And there are many legal considerations, implications associated with this. One of them has to do with our legal authority to do it in the first place. Agencies can only do what Congress authorizes them to do. So we have to make sure that we have the legal authority to do this. If we want to regulate industry, we have to make sure we have the authority to regulate industry. Agencies just can't regulate industry without Congress authorizing them to do that. There's issues regarding liability. Okay, who's going to be, responsible or liable for these collisions? Well, if the government gets involved in this, will the government now be responsible? If private industry gets involved. And one of the things we want to do is basically have private industry help us do this, have it be a partnership between U.S. government and what they can bring to the table and what the U.S. industry in this area can do. And you can read the press. There are some big companies who are focusing in on the issue of space debris. So this whole issue is basically, trying to figure out, who's responsible for what. And then, assuming we can establish a system for the United States, like air traffic control, that has to be, consistent, and it has to be coordinated, basically and harmonized with what other countries do. So there's a very important international element to this. And so it's something that we're focused on both, the national effort, our national program, and then how does that interface with what the international community will do. It's getting a lot of interest in a lot of parts, like the United Nations is focused on it. Other parts of the international community are focused on it. The EU is focused on this. So at the end of the day, it only works if we're all coordinated, like air traffic control. Doesn't do you much good if you have air traffic control of the States, but you're flying to Europe and our two systems don't meet. So the problem is acute, and that's not, again, not hyperbole. It really is a big problem, and we're operating under a very tight timeline to get this done. We're putting as much resources and smart people on the problem that we can. Like I said, I handle the legal end, but there's also the technical end of this of, how do you do this technically? Because then that's a large challenge in itself. So I know I've spoken fast. Oh, that's my timer. And I said a lot in a short period of time. But frankly, I've only basically kind of scratched the surface of what NOAA does. There's a lot more I could say about the activities of NOAA, but I'd be happy to take whatever questions you might have in the remaining time.
Thank you, Glenn. Do we have questions for Glenn? Yes, Jane. So the question is, how do you regulate privacy and say that again? And the use of the images.
Okay. So the imagery from space is not regulated as far as from a privacy perspective. For example, NOAA is not responsible for addressing the privacy aspects of the imagery. Most of the imagery basically is of the Earth features, that type of thing, or also structures on Earth. But our focus isn't on the privacy aspect of it. Frankly, our focus is on the national security aspects of imaging. Remote sensing from Earth does raise national security concerns, and those have to be addressed in our licenses. And so we do include conditions related to national security, which are temporary. The idea is that we want them in place to allow the national security community to figure out the mitigation for the risk to national security, and then basically have the conditions go away so the U.S. industry can lead the world and potentially discourage foreign competition. If the U.S. has already cornered the market in a particular area of merging of imagery, then basically there won't be foreign competition. But as far as privacy, that's not a concern of the Department of Commerce in this area. Other agencies may have an interest in that. I know there's been some legal writing done on it. And frankly, these people aren't spying on individuals. What they're looking at is, for example, tanks on the ground, other types of infrastructure, et cetera.
We have a meteorologist from our local Fox 43 station here, and he's asking if you could elaborate on the GOES-T that was launched last week.
Sure. Yes, I'm not, I'm a legal expert, not a meteorologist, but GOES-T is very important. It's part of the GOES-R series. And basically, we have two satellites located over the continental United States, goes east and goes west. And these satellites provide continuous coverage of the United States. And it's basically kind of like nowcasting what you see in here. Right now, what's going on with the atmosphere. This satellite has a lot of important, I'll say, improvements. One of the most interesting improvements is that this GOES will be mapping all the lightning strikes over the United States. And so the GOES imagery is critical for issuing our forecasts, our watches and warnings. It also plays a role in weather modeling. Also, the number of instruments on the spacecraft. The imager is the one that's probably the one that's most people would be aware of, because that shows actually the weather over the United States. It GOES is it's a multi-billion-dollar program. The GOES R series, and we're actually working on our next series of satellites, which will be the GOES XO series, and that's in design right now, and that will carry on the GOES mission into the future. I think that'll carry the mission into 2050 or beyond.
CJ, did you have a question? How does your organization manage or support private space travel?
Private space travel, we're really not in it. We're really not in that business, so to speak. That would be more of NASA. We're focused more on basically the remote sensing aspects of it. And remote sensing is a large and growing industry. It has a lot of commercial applications. For example, agriculture, farmers use it, for land planning, etc. So we're focused on that, and we're also focused on basically the commercial space sector that's generating data that we might use in our mission. For example, we buy data, and we're trying to support the commercial sector to develop the capability to build systems that meet NOAA's data need. One of the probably the most significant is GPS RO data, which is a form of meteorological data that's created by bouncing GPS signals off. Bouncing signals off GPS satellites, and this, which is a very important input into our weather modeling. It improves the weather modeling by about 15%. So our focus is more on the environment, on the observing end of it. I will say that, but other space actors, use these systems that we license. There's proximity operations being planned where spacecraft there'll be spacecraft that will be approaching other spacecraft for purposes of servicing the spacecraft, maybe taking the spacecraft out of orbit. And those could potentially be, manned missions in the future. So in a sense, we do support it, but that's not supporting the manned spaceflight mission. That is really NASA's mission. But thanks for the question.
Fred. How do you go about cleaning up the space debris, or do you have to learn how to avoid it?
Oh, that's a really good question. There's a lot of people working on that right now. We are, we're focused on avoidance. The Department of Defense for many years has been tracking space debris. I believe they were tracking about 20,000 objects, although there are many more objects than that. And NASA has also been tracking space debris, very small pieces of space debris. And so what we're doing now is, and that was always, Department of Defense was doing that for their own purposes. But they were providing providing service to the U.S. industry also, mainly because there was nobody else to do it. So Congress decided, no, given all the commercial space activity, we needed to get the Department of Defense out of supporting them, and we need to get this into this support into a civil agency. And they decided to pick NOAA to do that because we are a space-going agency. So right now, our effort will be to focus on providing the information required by space operators so they can avoid the space debris. And we're talking also about issuing what they call conjunction warnings. Conjunction is a fancy way to say collision warnings to the operators. Other thing we're looking at is, whether we can require space operators to move their spacecraft. That's something that's a hard question to answer. It probably requires Congress to act on it. So we're focused on collision avoidance at this point, but there are a number of companies that are actually right now in the planning stages, and some of them might even be bending metal to build systems that potentially could collect space debris and remove it out of the orbit. A lot of this space debris is in low Earth orbit, which is one of the most valuable orbits. It's about 500 miles up. And the concern is that if we have too many, several collisions could essentially make this orbit unusable for maybe hundreds of years. So it's a very important question, very important issue. We're focused on collision for now, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to support removing some of that space junk, so to speak, from that orbit.
Very good. Thank you so much, Glenn, for taking the time to be with us today.
You're welcome. That was fun. Appreciate the invite, and good luck to you all.
Thank you so much. It was a fabulous subject, and I know we are scratching the surface, but thank you for sharing that really great overview of what you do. In honor of Glenn's presentation today, we're donating the book Dig by A.S. King to Central High School for you to take back with you.
Awesome.
Our speaker next week will be Steve Voskuhl, Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of the Hershey Company. He leads the company's global finance organization. He'll discuss Hershey's longstanding purpose and values of the company and the approach to investing in long-term growth for the future. In addition, he'll give a behind-the-scenes view of leading through the pandemic and key priorities as the company looks to the future. And in closing, it's fitting that we have a quote by Irish author James Joyce. To learn, one must be humble, but life is the great teacher. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. This meeting is adjourned.